This is Letting Loose, Holding On Tight to You, written by Vaindumbass and read by Lala's Pordfics. Summary. Sirius is coming over now, is settling in on Remus's bed, careful not to sit on his legs. Remus isn't sure whether he imagines that he can feel the heat coming off Sirius or not. For once, he allows himself to be unguarded, to bask freely in Sirius's presence, to stare as much as he wants to. He smiles drowsily, because Sirius looks gorgeous like this, hair falling into his eyes, a determined look on his face, rummaging through a bag in search for something. "Aha!" Sirius says then, and Remus's smile widens at that, because he simply overflows with fondness right now, and he can't find it in him to keep it in like he usually does. Or, Remus is high on painstillers after the full moon, and Sirius comes to visit him. Author's notes. I know I said 2 days ago that I'm too busy to write, and to be fair, I probably am, but the idea of wrist kisses got stuck in my head, and in my defense, this was meant to be only a drabble. Anyway, feel free to visit my Tumblr. Remus was feeling a bit drowsy. The feeling wasn't unpleasant, but Remus also felt relaxed, which warned him that something was out of the ordinary. Carefully, he opened his eyes. As soon as he saw the white sheets he was bundled up in, the realization slowly entered his mind, as if they were just passing by on a lazy river. There was a full moon. This shouldn't be a surprise, and it isn't, not really. And it explains why he's in the hospital wing, but it doesn't explain why he feels so light. This full moon was worse than usual. He hums a little at the back of his throat, and it sounds weirdly detached in his own ears. It also causes his chest to move in a way that's painful, but not as painful as it could have been without these painkillers. No moving for him, then. He lies back down, and did you know there was a ray of sunlight just above Remus's bed? It illuminates specks of dust that twirl in nonsensical, beautiful patterns. Remus stares at it for quite a long time, and he doesn't even worry about all the schoolwork he has missed. The floating feeling is a nice bonus, and the hospital bed feels softer than it ever has. He's warm and content, and only mildly irritated when the door opens loudly. Sudden sounds and loud noises simply don't fit with the silence and calm he had gotten used to. Then he sees that it's Sirius, and all his sudden irritation dissipates. "Hey," Sirius says softly, and Remus likes that. Likes that Sirius isn't being loud for once, all for him. He needs to return the favor. He strains his throat, and the "hey" comes out a bit more scrappy than intended, and a little bit slurred, but it hurts only a little bit, and Sirius smiles in response. "Mooney, as much as I love to hear your voice, please just leave the talking to me for now." Apparently, even the non-physical hurt of being fake flirted with is dulled by these pain potions. Sirius is coming over now, is settling in on Remus's bed, careful not to sit on his legs. Remus isn't sure whether he imagines that he can feel the heat coming off Sirius or not. For once, he allows himself to be unguarded, to bask freely in Sirius's presence, to stare as much as he wants to. He smiles drowsily, because Sirius looks gorgeous like this, hair falling into his eyes, a determined look on his face, rummaging through a bag in search for something. "Aha!" Sirius says then, and Remus's smile widens at that, because he simply overflows with fondness right now, and he can't find it in him to keep it in like he usually does. Sirius shows him a jar filled with a thick green paste, as if it's the greatest treasure in the world. "I got this from Pomfrey. She's already tended to most of your wounds, of course, but she said that if I was going to get in here anyway, I should make myself useful. It should work against scarring, because while I think your scars make you look quite dashing, I know you disagree. Apparently the school couldn't afford this, but you know I love spending my parents' money, and since Gringotts doesn't know I'm disowned, probably because my lovely mother hates the goblins." Remus closes his eyes and listens to the pleasant rhythm of Sirius's voice. His bed is soft, and Sirius's voice is calming, and Remus feels as if he can sleep any moment now, and just sink away into the covers. Then Sirius touches him, and oh, yes, That's sure to pull him up. It doesn't startle him, though, but it's grounding and undeniable. Warm fingers trail over his left arm. Remus opens his eyes because he needs to know what Sirius looks like while doing this. Needs to know if Sirius is disgusted by all of his scars. It's hard and it takes a while, but it's worth it for the sight of Sirius, looking at his arm in a way that's almost reverent, with the end of his tongue peeking out of his mouth in a way that should be silly and at the very most endearing. But the idea that Sirius is concentrating so hard on helping him does things to Remus. Almost as if he can feel Remus's gaze on him, Sirius looks up. Remus doesn't look away when their eyes meet, like he usually would, but simply says, "Thank you." Sirius holds his gaze for a beat longer, but he grins a bit and says, "What did I say about talking?" But Remus sees the way he keeps on smiling. It's almost more intoxicating than the drugs he's on. Sirius's finger moved down his arm, and Remus thanks the wolf in his head for giving him a gash that extends until the back of his hand. He realizes, in a detached sort of way, that normally this moment would be filled with tension. Normally, Remus would pull away a bit, or find a way to incorporate James, anything to avoid anything that could reveal his feelings. Then again, Remus normally wasn't this relaxed. As it is, he simply turns over his hand when Sirius reaches it, and intertwines their fingers. He sighs contently. This is how it should be. Sirius stills for a bit, but then he uses his left hand to scoop some of the paste out of the jar, never letting go of Remus, and uses that one to spread the solve in a way that's probably less than ideal. Remus likes it a lot, the way Sirius rubs the solve into his skin in constant soothing circles, like the constant reminder that someone's there, and that someone is Sirius. After a while, Sirius finishes applying the paste, and then he just sits there and holds Remus's hand in both of his, and Remus likes that even more. Remus doesn't know how long it's been when Sirius moves his hand again, drawing shapes on his skin tentatively. "Is this okay?" Remus smiles again, or maybe he never stopped. More than. He revels in it, then, that he can have this, that he can have quiet moments where Sirius touches him as if he wants to, that he can have his lifelong crush so close to him without worrying about fucking it up. He thinks heaven can't exist because there's nowhere that could be a better place than here with Sirius. Sirius's eyes are a wonderful shade of gray, and his lashes are long and dark and beautiful. So Remus looks at them, and then Sirius looks back. Once again, Remus can't bring himself to worry, but decides instead to enjoy it. Sirius's palm is against his in a way that means their hands are dangling a bit off the bed, but Remus doesn't worry because Sirius will make sure his hand doesn't fall. Just as Remus thinks of falling asleep again, his hand is left cold. He doesn't worry too much because Sirius's fingers are still intertwined with his, but it's a bit weird that his palm is suddenly exposed to the air. Sirius still doesn't break eye contact, not even while he shifts his hand a bit so that Remus's hand is easier to carry, and then, with a delicious slide of his fingers, he brings Remus's hand, palm up, to his lips. Remus's drug-addled brain thinks it's fitting that his hand looks like one of a beggar, like one of a receiver, like one of a taker. He doesn't move his hand, and he wonders what gift Sirius will give him. He gives him this, a hot breath that makes warmth spread from his hand and makes it settle into his heart. He gives him this, lips skimming over his palm, and Remus has never been big on divination, but he thinks whatever path Sirius's lips take must be where the love line is located. Sirius gives him this, his pulse point, his veins protected by the seal of his lips. That's where Sirius holds still, and Remus knows that his heartbeat should be going through the roof, that he should be nervous, but Pomfrey did her work well. All he feels is that same contentment that has characterized their entire interaction, and an almost overwhelming sense of rightness, because Sirius used his mouth to kiss where the wolf used to bite. Remus needs to give some feedback, he decides, and he clumsily raises the arm that isn't held by Sirius to pull Sirius in closer, so their foreheads are touching. He could kiss Sirius, of course, but he doubts he'd be any good at it in his current state, and he's still very tired, so he looks at Sirius intently and says, "Talk tomorrow." "Whatever you want," Sirius responds, and then he puts some distance between them again to brush some hair from Remus's forehead. Good night. Night, Remus responds, and his eyes already closing. Love you. He's asleep before he can see Sirius's reaction. The end. Reader's notes. I really loved reading this. It's such a cute story. I love the idea of Sirius going out and spending his parents' money on medicine for Remus that Hogwarts wouldn't get him. That's just so in character and totally canon for me now. Please go to archiveofourown.org/works/251132220 to leave comments and kudos for the original author. Also, I just have to say I do not support any of J.K. Rowling's transphobia, and I hope you all enjoy this alternative Harry Potter content instead of supporting her. Have a great day!